I want to speak with you this evening about talent, and something that I'm deeply, deeply involved with for my entire career, and I think that all of you in some way or another are probably interested in, or you can relate to, or you've done something involving talent, because every day we deal with people in one way or another. And I want to talk about talent and how it relates to hiring, but you can think about it as how it relates to investing or building a project team or anything related to selecting the people that you're going to work with or that you're going to play with, okay? What I've seen over a long period of time is that everyone says they're going to hire A players or some derivative of that statement, all right? How many people have said, we only hire the best at our company? None of you. Amazing. That's scary. So I think you're just being shy, which isn't normal. But I bet you all say, we only hire the best people. We only hire A players. Let me tell you something. It's not possible. You can't all hire A players. All of us here in this room, we're all A players, of course. But outside, there are people who are not A players. And therefore, we can't all hire A players. It's just not mathematically possible. Okay? So the thing is you've got to think about, if you're really saying this, are you really doing it? And my theory is that the reason you're not doing it is because you're not investing enough time in it. Okay? Because it really takes a lot of time to figure out how exactly do you bring the best people onto your team. And what I want to share with you are 3 things that I think are critical to getting the best people on your team. Okay? So we've heard about this word passion. I was speaking about it earlier, and somebody said to me, this whole passion thing is a bunch of bullshit. Well, maybe it is. Maybe it is. Depends how you define it, right? It's definitely overused. Okay? We talk about this all the time. Passion, 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 passion. Right? If you know Steve Blank, the famous startup guy, he also talks about passion as well and the importance of it, and talks about how basically curiosity and enthusiasm are going to lead you toward your passions and lead you to do what you end up doing, okay? So I happen to believe that passion is actually really a key substance in hiring people, and I want to give you a couple of examples, and you'll notice some of these examples carry on throughout the presentation. But let me start with Google, where I happen to spend quite a lot of time, and where I think I came to believe that passion actually makes a whole hell of a lot of sense when you're looking at people and when you're evaluating people. Because at Google, you had to be really, really smart, okay? You had to be this A player, and we tested for it, and we evaluated for it, and searched far and wide for this super intelligence. But at the end of the day, if you really wanted to work at Google, you had to have this deep passion, okay? A deep passion for something. We didn't really care what it was. It just had to be for something. So maybe it was for, as Guy said, making bread. Okay? And he's so passionate about making bread that he tried to make bread every single different way that he could and entered bread-making competitions and was winning the award for best bread. Okay? That's the passion we were looking for. Maybe it had to do with the piano. Maybe it had to do with climbing mountains. Something like that, but the deep passion. And the reason that we wanted that and we wouldn't bring you into the company without it is because the theory goes, if you're so passionate of a person, you're not going to work for a company or do a job that you're not equally passionate about. You're going to be bored and you're going to leave. So we wanted to validate this passion within somebody and make sure that they had it to bring them into the company. Think about Pandora for a minute. Do you all know Pandora? Decent success story in the US as far as startups go. And amazing in terms of passion. First, not only did they spend years creating their music genome, basically analyzing song piece by piece by piece by piece, which to do that you have to be deeply passionate to begin with, but then look at the people who are behind the company, and I'll share some examples with you a little bit later, but the one I wanted to highlight first is a guy named Tom Conrad, who's the CTO of Pandora, and I think that he's exhibited this passion throughout his career, starting way back when he was young, around 1984, when he first saw the commercial on TV for a Macintosh computer and said, this is awesome, this is what I want to do, I want to work for this company, right? And he was probably 14 or 15 years old. And so he said, from now on, I'll do whatever it takes so I can work for that company. So he applied to go to the University in Michigan. He studied computer science. He did all the right things that he thought were the right thing for Apple. Finally wrote the letter one day saying, "Dear Apple, I want to work for you." It's a letter because we didn't have email then. And he sent it off and he got hired for Apple, and he got to fulfill that dream of working for Apple. He wanted it deep down, and he carried that throughout his career through different positions. It's an amazing story if you ever get a chance to follow it. And then there's another one that probably no one knows. Actually, a couple of people in the room I'm sure know because they know through Hack Forward. But Fantasy Shopper, very, very small startup. It's one of the first investments that we did at Hack Forward. And I would say the number one reason why we did the investment was pretty much because of the passion of the founders. They were bleeding passion. They were sweating passion for this company that you could see and feel when they talked about it. And that's the kind of thing that you wanted to feel and hear from the founders when you're thinking about making an investment, that they were living this thing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was their goal. It was their mission. And we saw this time and time and time again. And I think the most impressive, scary, I don't know which way you want to go with it, story is right when they were raising their Series A round. They were raising with a bunch of different angels and a couple of very well-known venture capital firms. And they were also, like probably many startups raising a Series A round, running out of money and running out of money fast. And so the founder and the CEO was living in an apartment with his partner and his newborn baby. And he was personally running out of money, and it was just before Christmas. And they were about to get kicked out on the street because they couldn't pay the rent anymore. They got an acquisition offer for the startup from a big e-commerce company for, let's say, around 10 million US dollars. Not a bad exit for a year's worth of work, 12, 14 months. And he said no. He said no to the acquisition offer, almost got kicked out, raised the round, kept the keys to his apartment, and kept going. And that's this passion thing that says, this is mine, this is my project, this is my baby, this is my vision, and I'm going to take it as far as I possibly can. Okay, so deep passion, I think it's hugely important. It's one of the things you want to find in people. So the next thing is adaptability. Okay? And I like to highlight adaptability by looking at Darwin, theory of evolution, survival of the fittest. You may not believe in it from a scientific perspective, and that's fine, who cares? But I think it definitely exists from a startup perspective and from a hiring perspective, that you want to hire people who are incredibly adaptable. Because we're living in a world, in a society where things change extremely quickly, and it's of critical importance that people can make the necessary changes to continue to succeed in whatever they're doing. So again, let's talk about examples here. Somewhere. There we go. So some similar examples. Adaptability, again, the learning that I took away from Google was when hiring, they said, David, don't hire subject matter experts. I don't want to hire a great salesperson. I don't want to hire a great marketing person. I want to hire a really smart person. I said, well, why not? Why? I mean, I don't understand. Don't you just want to hire a great guy who can go out and sell advertising, that knows how to do it, that's done it before? That's what you want, right? No. I just want the really smart guy. I said, why? Because in 12 months, he's going to be doing something different. In 12 months, he's going to be selling something else. Or maybe he's not going to be in sales at all. Maybe he's going to be in some other part of the company, and he needs to be able to function in that other role, in this other project, in order to be successful at the company. So we always had to hire these people who were adaptable and who were smart, but not necessarily the subject matter experts. Look at Pandora and the need to adapt. Again, super interesting story. Pandora, if you don't know, started as a B2B company. And they actually were putting kiosks into stores like, I don't know the European equivalent, sorry, but like a Best Buy, where customers could go and say, this is the kind of music I like, what kind of music should I buy? And that was the business model. And it wasn't working. And they're banging their head against the wall saying, why doesn't it work, why doesn't it work, why doesn't it work? And they say, well, we've got to do something about that. We've got to change. And so they actually decided to go B2C in the worst possible moment ever to go B2C, which was right around 2002, where, if you remember, Silicon Valley was a dead waste cesspool of nothing. Right? So they say we'll go B2C, and in the next section of the presentation, I'll tell you what happens. Fab.com. Do you know Fab.com? Yeah? Phenomenal story, right? I mean, just one of the most exciting startups, I think, out there today. Do you know what Fab.com was before Fab.com? Anybody? You don't count. You're in the press. Okay, so Fab.com was a dating site for gay men. It's true. And it didn't work. For whatever reason, it didn't work. And so these guys, Jason Goldberg and Brad, what's his name, Shellhammer or something, doesn't matter. Those guys went to their investors, again, out of money, and said, look, our gay dating site isn't working, but we've got this new idea here. It's on this napkin. We need more money. And they said, okay, fine. We know you guys are going to make something happen. We believe in you, so here's more money, go do it. And they did Fab. So again, knowing when things aren't working out and making the shift and making the change, critical characteristic in bringing somebody onto the team. So let's move to resilience, which is the third component of this. And you know, I think this is a guy that probably none of you have ever heard of, because I imagine there's no recruiters in the room, and who reads recruiting books but recruiters? And even me, I don't like recruiting books. But this guy writes a book about finding what he calls the rare find, and talks a lot about resilience. And if you ever want to read one and only one book on recruiting, read this guy's book. Because he talks about people from all different kinds of backgrounds and how they figure out how to get people into the Navy SEALs, into nonprofit organizations, into startups, into big companies. And he talks about this characteristic of resilience and how important it is to be able to get back up on your feet again after you've been knocked down, which I guess we can all relate to in one way or another. So again, some examples. You know, Google wasn't something that happened back in 1998, and they just knew that this was going to be this huge success story. I mean, Larry Page will tell you that when he was speaking to early investors that he said, you know, this will be a billion-dollar company, and of course they didn't believe him, but at least he believed in it. But Google for years had no business model whatsoever. Right? And so they had to keep going back to the investors and saying, we're building something, we've got a great technology, but we don't know how we're going to make any money. And it kept going and kept going and kept going until about 2002, where they figured out AdWords. And that was the beginning of it, but think about that. That's 4 years of really not knowing what's happening and not knowing where you're going. I put the N up there. Who remembers the N? See, this is how old I am. So the N is Netscape, for those of you that are younger, and at the time was probably the most exciting internet startup of all time. I mean, it was the internet. And so I tell you a personal story. I needed a job, and there was Netscape. And so I called Netscape, and I said, hey, I want to work for you. And they said, okay, well, we have a marketing job. And I said, that's great, that's fine. And then they said, no, we don't have a marketing job anymore. We have a recruiting job. And I said, okay, that's fine. I'll take that. I didn't care, right? I just wanted to work at Netscape. It was the coolest thing in Silicon Valley. So I got this recruiting job, and I'd never recruited before. And Netscape had just gone public. Okay? So if you ever decide to be a recruiter, do not join the company just after the IPO. Because all the people who did the job before you had a real easy time of it because people wanted to come work for the money and get the shares before they were public. So I joined exactly at the wrong moment with no experience in recruitment whatsoever, and I was terrible. I was horrible. And you know, I tried really hard. I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning to drive to work. I left work at 8 o'clock at night. I spent all the time I could trying to figure it out, and I couldn't do it. I was just getting beaten up. And my manager came to me and she said, David, this isn't working out, but we can't fire you right now without having this kind of meeting about what you should be doing. So here's 2 pieces of paper about all the things you need to do. If you can figure it out, then you can stay. So to make a long story short, I was young and I was ambitious and I loved the company, and so I found a way to figure it out, right? I mean, they really knocked me down on the floor and kind of kicked me a few times. And I said, screw that, I'm going to make this work because this is it. This is my show, so I'm going to make it happen. And I went on to hire a couple of 100 people for Netscape. So I figured it out, and it was a great feeling. So you get knocked down, you get back up again. But besides Google, besides me, I think Pandora, when you're talking about startups and when you're talking about individuals and resilience, is one of the more amazing stories out there. So the guy who founded Pandora, you'll remember now, started off as a B2B project, right, working for years on the research, gets to be about 2001, and the bubble bursts, and they're running out of money, decide to change it to B2C. He says to his group of employees, I'm sorry, but we're pretty much out of money, so I can't pay you. I need you to stay and work for free, okay? But when I raise the round, then I'll pay you back, okay? So how many people work for free? A few, right? Because you can. Not many, right? And not many can do it for a long time. This guy got his entire team to work for free while he's out trying to raise money for a B2C startup in 2001, Silicon Valley, right? This is painful enough. Guess how many venture capital meetings he had before he raised the money? Throw out numbers. 200? 100? 300. So he had 300 meetings. But just think about this for a minute, right? Just think about it. 300 pitches. Where pretty much he's going in, I guess he tweaked it a few times along the way, but pretty much going in every time trying to raise money for his company. Could you imagine doing that? Could you imagine doing that yourself? Going to meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting and hearing no, 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 and just keep on going? And he did, somehow. I don't know how. I don't know if I could do it. But he did it, and 300 tries later, he raised the money. And as we all know, Pandora went on to be a relative success story in the US. So resilience, this is what you want in people. So to wrap it up, it's not obvious to hire these A players no matter what you all say or what you all think. You have to put a lot of time and effort into it, and it takes a lot of work. But if you keep these 3 characteristics in mind of passion and adaptability and resilience, and you focus on, can I hire people or work with people that embody these characteristics, then I think you're definitely on your way to forming a great team and building a great company. Thanks very much.